Hi, a very good morning. I'm Sol. I head the system engineering team for Rubrik ASEAN and India region. I'm very glad to be here today in this ISOG Metaverse forum to present to you Rubrik data security. All right. So without further ado, let's kickstart the presentation. Well, that's the reason why we are here, and this is the key questions that has been driving our business over the past few years. Is my data safe? And we have seen the across the landscape the shift from cybersecurity to a cyber resilience one, and that is some things that a lot of customers are really looking into today to take an assume breach approach, right? So no matter how much of a infrastructure security that customers have put in place across the parameters, network, endpoint, application security, the adversaries will still be able to execute across the kill chain and get into your crown jewel, right, and get access to your crown jewel, which is the applications and data. And in building the cyber resilience service, right, for your organization, what's the most important thing, the most important component is definitely the backup, right? So, but then in reality, if we look at across the landscape, across different verticals and the enterprise environments, maybe the enterprise and the small, medium, large environment, the legacy backups is not able to give you the assured recoverabilities, right? So the key questions that we often ask the customers is that how different is your backup as compared to the front end production system, which is sitting on the existing file system that's been there for the last 30, 40 years, right? So how do you eliminate the surface area for attack? How do you prevent a supply chain vulnerabilities, right? So those are the key questions that and design considerations that we have to take into considerations. So eventually, adversary will still be able to compromise and consume your backup images and getting access to your backup data and exfiltrate your data. So in Rubrik, we believe in building a zero trust data security at the last line of defense. And of course, backup is the key components that we make use of to be able to protect your data. And I'll go a little bit deeper into how we really leveraged on the data security approach to build an observability suite for our customers. So this is how the reality really looks like. No matter how much of investments that you put into your infrastructure security, there's still holes somewhere, right? It's really the kind of situations that many large environments is scrambling to handle today, right? So how much money should I be budgeted for ransom? Yeah, eventually that's the kind of questions that many IT organizations is asking themselves. So why are organizations stuck with paying ransom, right? So you might be, I mean, it's no surprise that ransomware locks down data at a wee hour and very often over the weekend or during the public holiday. And of course, paying ransom is never the options that we're always looking at the attempt to recover, right? Which is option 2 in this case. And very often during the ransomware remediation process, we put together IT ops and SecOps together. And these two functions, these two roles has, comes from different background, different culture, different skill set and tool set. They have to come together to assess the magnitude of impact and to be able to remediate from the ransomware attack situation, right? And one very key questions that the IT ops will firstly ask, do we have assured recoverabilities? Is my backup being compromised? Right, catalog might be sitting on a third-party database, right? Backup images might be sitting on a file system that has been there for the last 30, 40 years. Is your backup safeguarded, right? Can anomalies be found? Do we know what are the sensitive data that's been exfiltrated, right? And is there malware present? at which point in time, so that you can be sure that the data, the point in times that you are recovering is free from malware, right? So that you don't encounter an attack loop scenario, reinfecting your production environment again after your recovery. And of course, last but not least, can we quickly recover? Can we orchestrate the recovery process? So all this process come into play, and don't be surprised that a lot of large enterprise do not really have an idea how tedious it is. And it's really different from your traditional disaster recovery or recovery from an outage scenario, right? Let's take a look at the defense in depth with the zero trust data security, right? I mentioned about infrastructure security, but taking that, having the investment in the infrastructure security is just not enough, right? Having prevention, detection, and the abilities to be able to investigate, those are key. But in a zero trust data security design, in a zero trust design, within the cyber resilience services, it's important for us to take data security into consideration for your last line of defense. In Rubrik, these are the three key pillars that we believe in our solution designs to be able to provide a complete data security as part of the zero trust design, which is data resilience, data observability, and data recovery. And of course, different vendor has different definitions of the zero trust. We adhere to the NIST standard, right, which is, we believe, is most comprehensive, the most platform agnostic, and the most open standard of all zero trust. And these are the three key pillars that sets our visions and design for our product portfolio, right? At the genesis of design, data immutability is, the file system immutability is built into our design, right? So we do not expose a file system over a standard storage protocol. Imagine you have a smarter way to defend your data, right? Where we don't expose the backup images over at the standard storage protocol, and a catalog doesn't sit on the third party, and the file system is always immutable. We don't expose any of them, right? So that you can safeguard your data. It cannot be deleted. It can't be compromised or encrypted, right? Traditionally, we are looking at just backup and recovery, right? So what Rubrik has really done is to build in a data observability solution here, right? Imagine if you could continuously monitor and remediate risks to your data. And now you can discover sensitive data, identify ransomware attack, and find malware in your systems, right? So just imagine if you have 2 petabytes of capacity in your environments, right? So you're not going to recover the entire 2 petabytes at one go, right? So what you need to do is really to understand to assess the magnitude of impact, to understand what are the high value data that's being impacted, so as to be able to tier your recovery strategy. And of course, to be able to orchestrate the entire recovery process. So imagine you can quarantine the infected content and recover the data in one single click, right? So now you can isolate malware, automate mass recovery operation at scale or in granular. Right? So these are the 3 key pillars that set how we think about our product design into the future. So the next frontier in cybersecurity is really data security, right? So this is being implemented for all on-prem solutions today, the enterprise data protections, cloud data protections, and Microsoft M365, right? So the data observability will be able to give our data protection the observability into ransomware monitoring and investigation, sensitive data monitoring and management, and threat hunting monitoring, right? So, and then of course, last but not least, the recovery process to be a threat contain, mass recovery, and perform orchestrated application recovery, setting dependency between apps, threats, and databases. Now, with these solutions in place, the remediation process will play out very differently. right? You only think about how you can recover and bounce back from a ransomware attack scenario, putting IT ops and SecOps together. There's cross-team collaborations. We are able to enrich the SIEM and SOAR tool through our SIEM and SOAR tool integration through our first API first approach. The two team can then sit together, assess the magnitude impact, and to be able to investigate in anomalies, discover the sensitive data, contain malware, and preventions of the reinfection as you recover back to the production environment. And of course, orchestrate the entire recovery process with much faster, with our secure architectures. So this is really important. How strong is your last line of defense? When was the last time you have performed a ransomware remediation process or even a ransomware tabletop workshop, right? And to be able to understand the whole remediation process. Double click into Rubrik data resilience that, as I mentioned, at the core of the data resilience is actually our immutable architecture, how differently we are doing it as compared to all other players in the market. If you look at all solutions out there in the market, there's always backup and storage. And backup ingest the data, in-text catalog the data, and storage present a file system over a standard storage protocol for receiving the data, inline, dedupe, compress, and replicates data. We don't do that, right? So we do not present storage over a standard storage protocol. We don't expose our file systems. Data is being ingested and accessed through a POSIX API into our internal data vault, right? So this is the core of our immutable architecture. And with that, we're also looking at how we can prevent compromise at the administrative layer. That's intelligent data locking, right? So it's something like a recycle bin that holds data for 7 days over beyond the last admin action. It has a heuristic function to be able to intelligently look at the administrative access to change the retention policy. There's also retention locking mechanisms so that you can't disrupt the backup. There's two-person rule approval that need to change the retention policy. There's access control at every single layer, right? There's role-based access control, mandatory and natively enforced multi-factor authentications and a time-based one-time password. And all this at the left-hand side are the security measures that put in place to prevent compromise at the administrative layer. And of course, on the right-hand side, logical air gap, encryption, end-to-end, and immutable by design. These are the three key layers that sets the immutable architectures. And of course, with that, what we are doing very differently as compared to all other players in the market is data observability that allows you to continuously monitor your data for ransomware, remediation, sensitive data exposure, and find indicator of compromise. So imagine without the data observability, you can't really be certain, you can't assess the magnitude impact. You can't be certain that which are the granular sensitive data or high value data that's being impacted. We make use of the sensitive data discovery process, which we set a list of compliance policy so that it helps you to identify what are the PCI, DSS, HIPAA, GDPR data that's being impacted. And as part of this process, you can further investigate by performing a threat hunting process. And the threat hunting engine is integrated into our backup solution so that it looks at the backup image and it threat hunt at the secondary storage without impacting on the front end at all, right? So that really helps you to streamline the whole remediation process instead of you trying to guess which are the clean point in time. And after recovery, what happens? It could be within 48 hours, reinfecting your production environment again. So data recovery process or data remediation allows you to surgically and rapidly recover your application, files, or users while avoiding a malware reinfection, right? So that ensures a quick a safe data recovery process by quarantining data infected with malware, restoring your business operation quickly, and of course, we can actually set a blueprint with a pre-built workflows to automate the whole the recovery, orchestrate the whole recovery process. Most importantly, we are confident of the solution. That's the reason why we are giving this 5 million ransomware recovery warranty to our enterprise customers. Conditions applies, of course. Thank you for watching today's presentations. I'm glad to be here. Feel free to speak to our country lead and pre-sales in your region. Happy to be part of this event and happy to be connecting with you again for a deeper dive session. Thank you.